Greetings. This is Psychic Chandler Duane here with another sermon from the Psychic Seminary. The title of today's sermon is Ethical Standards for Psychics. This sermon is for two groups of people. One group are for psychics who are trying to be of the highest spiritual service. Second group are people who are looking for psychics who are trying to be of the highest spiritual service. So let's begin with the first group. Psychics who are trying to be of the highest spiritual service. As a psychic, are you willing to abide by what I call the 4 I's? The first I is invitation. Have you been invited by anyone to share your messages with them? If not, then you're conducting what I call a drive-by psychic shooting. If you haven't been invited, don't just go sharing your messages with everyone. The second I is invasion. Do you try to pick up on people without their permission? That is an invasion of privacy. Would you bug their telephone? The third I is interference. Do you feel the desperate need to help people even when they haven't asked for your help? Then you're communicating to them that they are weak and you are stronger than they are. Do you feel the desperate need to fix something for someone even when they haven't asked you for your supposed expertise? Then you're communicating to them that they are incompetent and you're smarter than they are. You may not mean to be communicating these things, but if you jump in to help and fix, it's really and truly what you're energetically communicating to another human being. And even if you do help or fix, the individual has not learned how to do it for themselves, and they'll still need to learn how to do it. You're only postponing their learning process in this life or even the next one. The fourth I is intervention. Intervention. Ask yourself this question to begin with. Does your message seem to have an overwhelming sense of urgency? Can you first identify what the emergency is? That is, what do you think is going to happen if you don't share the message? Then let's look at another question you can ask yourself for intervention. Will sharing the message make things better or make things worse? Or can the receiver actually do anything about the message? For example, could warning about a car wreck prevent it from happening or upset someone and cause it? Or could warning about a heart attack actually encourage someone to go to the doctor or hospital and help them out? Another intervention question. What is your motivation for sharing the message? Is it to be of service, or is it to prove what a badass psychic you are? Do you know what your emergency message sign is? We'll talk about that in a moment. And even then, can you ask permission first? My emergency message sign is nausea. Let me tell you a story about how that works for me. So I'm sitting in a restaurant and a server comes up to take my order. I pick up that she needs to call her sister immediately. I dismiss it because it is an invasion of her privacy. I didn't mean to pick up on her to begin with. I begin to get nauseous and know I'm going to have to share the message. I've learned from past experience that this is my sign, and I will embarrass myself by actually throwing up if I don't try to deliver the message. I tell her, you may think I'm crazy, but I'm a psychic, and I seem to have gotten an emergency message for you if you are open to my sharing it. She was quite open to receiving the message, and I shared it with her. I would not have shared the message if she had not been open to it. I would have respected her free will, and my responsibility would have ended there. In other words, she was not issuing an invitation for me to share even after I ask. She shares with me that she had been feeling she needed to check in on her sister, who lived in another state, and that she would check in with her on her break. And I just found myself spurting out, you need to do it immediately, and that I would be happy to tell her manager why she needed to take her break now. That's not something that I would usually do. So, believe it or not, she went to the manager, told him what I said, and he came over to the table to hear it from me directly. So I tell him. Then he tells the server to go on break and call her sister, and he even gave her his calling card to use because none of the restaurant phones back then would allow long-distance calls. While we waited, the manager began to ask me questions about my psychic gifts, and we had a great conversation. After several minutes, the server came back to the table. She was in tears because her call had just stopped her sister from committing suicide. Her sister didn't know how to leave an abusive relationship, and she thought it was her only way out. So the server was going to send her sister an airline ticket to come stay with her. I found out later that the manager actually paid for the ticket. So please note from this story I just shared, I knew from experience what my emergency message sign was. I didn't just declare an emergency. And even though I got my emergency message sign, I still needed to be invited to share. Usually, when you get an emergency message sign, not always, Spirit has already prepared the way for you to deliver it. For example, the person is open to the message, others around you assist, those kind of things. And the delivery will be delicate. Notice that Spirit didn't ask me to scream at her, your sister has a gun to her head. Your gift does not make you infallible, and it does not give you the right to bypass sensitivity for shock value. So let me give you a summary of the 4 I's. If you haven't been invited to share a message, then you're invading someone's privacy, or you're interfering with their learning process unless you are legitimately intervening because it's an emergency situation. Also, as a psychic, are you willing to check yourself for what I call double E syndrome? Double E syndrome. I have had an experience, and I am now an expert on out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, ghosts, spirit guides, ascended masters, angels, UFOs, aliens, spontaneous healing. There's lots of others. Just because you've had an experience with any of these doesn't make you an expert in them without due diligence. As a psychic, are you willing to check yourself also for what I call ego enhancement complex? Ego enhancement complex I describe as, I've always wanted to be a psychiatrist or counselor or minister or doctor or lawyer or professor or any number of other things. Being a psychic doesn't bypass any of the credentials needed for the above. And as a psychic, are you willing to check yourself for power tripping? I'd like to suggest you're on a power trip if you continually show up late for your client appointments, you feel no need to respect your client's complete confidentiality. And what I mean by that, you don't share anything that you have shared with them. What happens in the session stays in the session, and you don't even share that person's name or that they've made an appointment with you. You're on a power trip if you feel more important the more your gift grows. You tell people what to do rather than assist them to discover it for themselves. You always know better what is best for the client than they know for themselves. You know you couldn't possibly be wrong about what you're receiving. You're dressing dramatically and using costly tools are more important to you than the quality of your work. And I would like to suggest you're on a power trip if you feel others with psychic gifts are your direct competition. Quite frankly, we need all the gifted human beings on this planet that we can possibly find. I'd also like to ask, as a psychic, are you willing not to fake it? Not faking it means practice, practice, practice with volunteers until you have a really good grasp on your gifts and what tools, processes work best for you. Be true to the messages you receive, even if it doesn't make sense to the client at the time. It may later. You don't have to insist that you're right. You just deliver them. If they don't make sense, you move on. They may make sense later. I've had clients call me back months later and go, you know, when I told you blah, blah, blah about what you said, and I didn't think you were right. Well, I just found out that you were. Not faking it means only sharing what you receive, not your interpretation of it. Just what you see, what you hear, what you're getting, and then don't add to it your interpretation of it. That's really up to the client to do. They know better how to interpret the message than you do because the message is for them. Really important here, don't try to fill in blank spaces with info you weren't getting. You pause and you're trying to get more information on something and you can't get it, you just need to move on. Do not fill in blank spaces unless you're actually getting something. And you can just say that, I'm not getting any more on that. Not faking it means don't predict times, especially not deaths. And this is because time is not linear. And timelines can change with different choices that people make. Someone may have set up an exit point for themselves, you know, when they could check out, but decide not to take it at the last minute. At the beginning of this video, I shared that it was for two groups. First group was psychics who are trying to be of the highest spiritual service. And the second group was people who are looking for psychics who are trying to be of the highest spiritual service. So, are you looking for a psychic? Here are some questions that I encourage you to ask yourself. Why do you feel like you need a psychic? This will tell you for what kind of psychic service you are looking. For example, I personally am a psychic channeler who specializes in finding and following your spiritual path. If you're wanting someone to do an astrological reading for you, I can't do that. I don't know how. So other psychic services could include mediumship, astrology, remote viewing, dream interpretation, paranormal investigators, hypnosis, palmistry, aura, chakra, energy readings. There's lots of others. But if you know for what kind of psychic service you are looking, it will help you find the right person with whom you feel resonance. I would also like for you to ask yourself, do you know who is in charge of your life? And the answer to this question is, you are. Using the services of a psychic doesn't replace your own inner sense of knowing, and it's meant only to add to your own contemplations about your issue or question, not to supplant them. You'll have a much better experience with a psychic and know how to evaluate their services when you really realize this. You, no one else, is in charge of your life. Side note, nothing should replace your own inner sense of knowing. Not family members or friends, or even those in the non-physical realms like angels and spirit guides and our ancestors. Both those in the physical and non-physical form are only here to assist you, not to live your life for you. It's your life and it's up to you. Let me share a metaphor with you and call it the airport. We have a tendency to try to find guidance by like going to the airport and standing in the middle of the airport and going, oh God, Spirit, which gate should I go to? And we're standing in the middle of the airport waiting for God or Spirit or whomever or whatever to tell us what gate to go to. And we keep looking at all the different directions we can go and waiting to be told which direction to go and which gate to go to. And I would like to suggest that God or Spirit or your guidance is like an airplane circling the airport, and the airplane's looking down on you and going, we don't know what gate you should go to. It's your life to live as you so choose. But once you choose a gate to go to and you start heading toward that gate, we'll land this airplane with all sorts of people and resources and guidance to help you along the way. So it's not so much asking which gate to go to, it's that you start heading in the direction of the gate you feel called toward, and then the plane will land with the resources. I'd also like to ask for you to ask yourself as you're looking for a psychic, can you tell if the psychic is transparent or not? You should be able to find out easily who they are, what they do, and how they do it. For instance, do they have a website? Does it tell you who they are? Does it have a photo of them so you can see them, look at them? How does the photo and everything else on the website make you feel? Really get in touch with your feelings, whether this feels right or not. Are their services, length of their services, and prices clearly listed without your having to contact them first? And do they tell you how to prepare for your appointment and what to expect during your appointment? After your appointment, let's talk about evaluating your psychic. These are things that you can ask yourself as you're evaluating your psychic. For example, were they on time? And did they provide the agreed upon services for the scheduled amount of time? Did they deliver their messages with humbleness and compassion, or with flamboyance and arrogance? Did the messages give you more insight into your issue or question? Did you feel more empowered or less empowered after your session? Did they try to frighten or pressure you into more services with them? Were they insistent that you do just exactly what they said? Did they share with anyone that you scheduled an appointment with them? Did they share with you the name of anyone who scheduled an appointment with them? Did they engage in gossip or talk bad about anyone? Would you feel comfortable or even honored to refer a relative or friend to them? If you would feel comfortable or even honored to refer a relative or friend to them, please do. And consider posting about them on all of your social media. These things help psychics who are trying to be of the highest spiritual service to be of service to more and more people. Blessings upon you, whether you are a psychic, someone looking for a psychic, or you are beginning to develop your own psychic gifts.